My parents chose to miss my wedding, citing my marriage before my flawless sister as the reason. Now, their meticulously crafted family image is disintegrating. After a 4-year relationship, I, a 32-year-old woman, celebrated my marriage 8 months prior. Apart from my sister Malene, 30, and our parents, everyone else joyfully attended the ceremony. My parents' decision to boycott the event was surprising, yet my sister's non-attendance didn't entirely shock me, given our historically strained relationship. In retrospect, considering our history, I should have seen this coming. To provide context, I'll delve into our family's intricate dynamics. It's hard to fault my parents entirely for their consistent preference for my sister. Throughout her existence, she has demonstrated exceptional talent in virtually every pursuit. From the moment she could walk, she effortlessly commanded attention in any setting. She triumphed in every academic competition, from spelling bees to science fairs and talent showcases in her early school years. High school saw her as class president, valedictorian, and prom queen, maintaining a consistent pattern. Tall, slim, and undeniably attractive, she ventured into modeling during college, later shifting her focus to a business degree. Her inaugural modeling gig occurred during her sophomore year, a vivid memory for me. To commemorate the occasion, my parents hosted an extravagant celebration, inviting all our relatives and her companions. Her first professional headshot was elegantly framed and prominently displayed in our living room, still occupying that spot above the fireplace. That same year, I earned my computer science degree. Their response was a mere, muted, well done, before they resumed orchestrating Malene's subsequent photoshoot. Post-graduation, she swiftly ascended the corporate hierarchy, securing a position at a prestigious firm. At the young age of 30, she's already a senior executive, boasting a corner office and a company car. Meanwhile, I'm employed at a reputable computer firm, working as a mid-level software engineer. While I derive satisfaction from my work, and it's a respectable career, it doesn't elicit parental pride in family gatherings. Additionally, I'm physically larger and shorter than my sister. Growing up, my mother made insensitive comments about my physique, enrolling me in unwanted workout sessions and imposing constant diets. She'd utter phrases like, "Malene never has weight issues," or, "You could be as attractive as your sister with a bit more dedication." Though I learned to tune out these remarks by high school, they undeniably left a mark. Over time, I've come to accept these differences, ultimately reconciling with the fact that my parents never derived as much joy from my achievements as they did from Malene's. What choice did I have? I spent years seeking their validation, attending classes they suggested, joining clubs they endorsed, and even briefly, and unsuccessfully, dabbling in modeling, a misstep my sister never lets me forget. Yet, nothing ever sufficed. I was simply the second-born daughter, and they were completely captivated by my sister's triumphs. Sometime in my mid-20s, I relinquished the pursuit of their approval. I shifted my focus to building my own life, advancing professionally on my own initiative, and forging connections with individuals who valued me for my authentic self. Honestly, since then, life has significantly improved. Aware of my parents' constant preoccupation with appearances, I maintained superficial interactions with them to avoid unnecessary friction. During obligatory Christmas dinners and occasional family events, I'd offer nods and smiles as they extolled Malene's latest career move, romantic interest, or exotic vacation. Their infatuation with Malene seemed to blind them to my emotional detachment. Then, at a tech conference, I encountered my future spouse through a shared acquaintance. He noticed me, truly saw me, a stark contrast to my family's perception. He appreciated my quirky humor, my coding skills, and, remarkably, even my body type, from the outset. Never once did he suggest I change or draw comparisons to others. After 4 years of courtship, he proposed while we were enjoying takeout and our favorite show at home. It was absolutely perfect. Naturally, I informed my parents of my engagement last year. Their initial reaction should have been a red flag. There were no words of congratulations, only an uncomfortable silence. My mother proceeded to question my readiness for such a commitment, suggesting I might want to improve my physical condition before the wedding. My father remained conspicuously silent. During the engagement celebration, my husband observed their peculiar behavior, something I was too preoccupied to fully grasp at the time. They spent the majority of the evening huddled in a corner, fixated on my mother's phone. My husband later revealed he overheard them conversing with Malene, who was audibly distressed. He vaguely recalled them discussing how this deviated from the plan, and how they never anticipated Rebecca marrying first. The wedding planning phase encountered some minor obstacles. Despite not being engaged herself, my mother had already curated numerous wedding Pinterest boards for Malene and showed no enthusiasm for assisting me with dress or venue selection. When I finally chose my dress, a simple yet elegant A-line gown that made me feel beautiful, my mother's only comment was that it was practical and suited my figure. My future mother-in-law, who treated me like the daughter she never had, became my primary support for most of the preparations. I meticulously reviewed and double-checked the guest list with my fiancé, ensuring no one was inadvertently omitted, before dispatching both digital and physical wedding invitations. I'm certain my parents received theirs, as the electronic invitations indicated read receipts. Upon realizing they hadn't RSVP'd, I made multiple attempts to reach them via phone, text, and email. My messages were either disregarded or met with non-committal replies about their busy schedules and the need to check their calendars. Preoccupied with wedding preparations, I couldn't dwell on their lack of response. My in-laws were incredibly supportive, offering assistance with everything from seating arrangements to floral designs. Even at the lovely bridal shower organized by my husband's sister, the conspicuous absence of my own family was never mentioned. Despite my parents' absence, the wedding day itself was truly magical. We opted for a relaxed afternoon celebration following a morning ceremony in a picturesque garden. Everyone remarked on our evident joy and love. Yet, there were moments when their absence felt like a palpable void, such as the empty front row seats or the father-daughter dance I couldn't experience. Post-honeymoon and wedding, I sought clarification. When I finally reached them by phone, they expressed deep hurt, claiming they never received a formal invitation. My mother launched into a prolonged diatribe about my supposed carelessness, her lifelong dream of assisting in her daughter's wedding planning, and her bewilderment at being excluded from such a momentous occasion. This perplexed me, as I was certain we had sent them both types of invitations. During the call, I verified our records, confirming that we had indeed sent them. Even the physical invitation's delivery was confirmed. I refrained from confronting them about their gaslighting attempts, simply apologizing for the mistake and ending the call. Later, my husband highlighted several instances that pointed to their true intentions, like their surprised rather than joyful reaction to our engagement announcement or their consistent excuses for not assisting with wedding preparations. He hadn't raised these observations earlier to avoid adding to my stress during the planning process, but in hindsight, the pattern was unmistakable. The notion of me, the less accomplished daughter, marrying before their cherished Malene was simply unbearable for them. Their behavior merely reinforced what I had always suspected but resisted acknowledging. I could never measure up to my sister in their eyes. The most disheartening realization was that even my wedding day, which should have been a joyous celebration of love and new beginnings, became another battleground in their relentless quest to preserve their perfect family image, with Malene at its center. According to relatives I've spoken with, Malene recently became engaged to her partner of 1 year. In family group chats I'm excluded from, my parents have openly expressed their elation at planning an extravagant wedding for her. They're already bragging about securing exclusive venues and designer gowns, and my mother is accompanying Malene to private fittings at high-end boutiques, all the mother-daughter experiences I was denied. Intriguingly, a significant number of our relatives are suddenly declining to attend Malene's wedding and engagement party. My parents' behavior at my wedding has apparently become a topic of discussion within the family. When family members inquire about my parents' absence at my wedding, I simply state what I believe to be true. They couldn't bear to see me married before their favored daughter. I present the facts as I perceive them, without embellishment or attempts to garner sympathy. A few days ago, my parents contacted me, accusing me of deliberately attempting to sabotage Malene's wedding. They claim the relatives they've spoken to are fabricating excuses to avoid attending any of her wedding-related events. My cousin, to whom my sister confided, informed her that people are hesitant to attend due to hearing about my parents' treatment of me. My parents allege I'm spreading false narratives out of envy for my sister's impending lavish wedding. The irony is, I'm merely recounting the truth of what transpired. Perhaps, instead of blaming me for the consequences, they should reflect on their own actions. If the truth paints them in a negative light, that's a reflection of their conduct, not my words. As events continue to unfold, I find it increasingly challenging to maintain the pretense of a relationship with my parents. Their actions surrounding my wedding ultimately clarified that I would never be enough for them, regardless of my endeavors. Their absence at my wedding is no longer the most painful aspect. It's the acceptance that I never had the loving, supportive parents I always yearned for. I'm focusing on building a life with someone who genuinely values me for who I am, but I'll provide further updates if any significant developments occur. First update. Since my initial post 2 weeks ago, a considerable amount has transpired. I ultimately decided to confront my parents face-to-face about their behavior at my wedding and their ongoing accusations that I'm ruining my sister's special day, prompted by your encouraging comments. I felt it was time to lay everything bare when they started texting me about their tarnished family reputation. During our phone conversation, my parents swiftly resorted to accusations, claiming I was envious of Malene and had orchestrated the entire situation. Instead of defending myself as I typically would, I did something unprecedented. I agreed with them, though not in the way they anticipated. I stated, "You're right, I am envious. Not of Malene's career, her achievements, or her appearance. I'm envious of the unwavering love and support you've consistently shown her, which you never even attempted to offer me." A prolonged silence followed. My mother then began asserting that I was exaggerating and that they had always treated us equitably. Something within me snapped at that moment. Emotions I had suppressed for years came pouring out. I recounted every birthday where Malene's latest accomplishment overshadowed my own. I reminded them of how my high school graduation dinner was canceled because Malene had a modeling callback, and how her prom dress cost more than my entire year's worth of college textbooks. Despite my father's attempts to interrupt, accusing me of exaggeration, I persisted. I spoke about the pain of watching them spend years planning my sister's hypothetical wedding while showing zero interest in my own. I described the agony of seeing my parents' seats empty and how my mother-in-law had to assist me with everything, from wedding preparations to dress shopping. Their response was telling. Instead of acknowledging any of my points, they deflected blame onto me. "Why didn't you ever voice these feelings if you felt this way?" my mother demanded, as if I hadn't spent years attempting to communicate with them. My father added that I was being unfair and vindictive by discussing these emotions with our relatives. My mother then uttered a statement that ultimately clarified everything. "We always knew you were insecure about her success, but we never imagined you'd go to such lengths as to try to ruin Maline's wedding out of spite," she declared. "This is not how we raised you." It dawned on me that they were incapable of truly hearing me. They believed the entire situation had nothing to do with their actions or my feelings. It was all about Maline's reaction. Even during this discussion about their absence from my wedding, they were more concerned about her upcoming nuptials than the hurt they had inflicted upon me. For the first time in my life, I didn't attempt to smooth things over. I didn't back down or apologize. Instead, I expressed my thoughts to them directly. "You're right about one thing, you did raise me. You instilled in me the belief that I would never measure up, that Maline's accomplishments would always be more significant than mine, that maintaining your perfect family image was more important than my feelings. But you also taught me, unintentionally, that I deserved better than this." A lengthy pause ensued before my father spoke, his tone cold and detached. "Perhaps it's time we stop pretending we're terrible parents, since you've already decided we are, and you clearly derive pleasure from seeing us suffer. We assumed, since you're family, you'd help resolve this, but it's evident you've made your choice." My mother delivered the final blow. "Perhaps you simply couldn't handle not being the center of attention, even though we always tried to treat you both fairly, Rebecca. That's not our fault. You chose to play the victim." I refrained from arguing. What would be the point? They had just validated everything I had been saying. Even in this final conversation, they were incapable of admitting their role in any of it. I simply said goodbye and hung up. Surprisingly, I felt a sense of relief after the call. There were tears, certainly, but they weren't the frantic, heartbroken tears I remembered from my younger years. They were tears of liberation. For the first time, I had expressed everything I needed to say without holding back or feeling guilty about my emotions. Later, my husband found me gazing at the sunset from our back porch. He sat beside me, silently taking my hand. "They're never going to change, are they?" I asked him after a while. "No, but you have," he replied, squeezing my hand. "And that's what matters." He's correct. I have changed. The young girl who desperately sought her parents' approval is gone. The woman who emerged from that final conversation no longer needs their validation. Acknowledging that my parents will never be the people I need them to be is painful, but it's less painful than clinging to the hope that they might change. For the first time, I genuinely don't care what happens with my sister's wedding or the family drama. I've said my piece, and they now have to deal with the consequences. The strangest part? I feel as though a burden I've carried my entire life has finally been lifted. While it's not the happy ending I had envisioned with my parents, perhaps it was the one I needed. The freedom to stop striving for love that should have been freely given. Second update. 3 days have elapsed since my confrontation with our parents, and events have taken an unexpected turn. Maline decided to intervene in the drama, but her strategy backfired spectacularly. Yesterday morning, my sister sent me a carefully crafted message. She had cultivated a condescending tone over the years, and it was evident in her text. "What you said to our parents was completely inappropriate. They have supported us through every phase of our lives and given us everything. You cannot simply blame them for being bad parents because you're insecure about your life choices." She continued the message with her usual mix of moral superiority and veiled jabs. "I understand your wedding wasn't precisely what you envisioned, but that doesn't give you the right to attempt to destroy mine. There's nothing wrong with wanting a celebration that honors those of us who have worked hard to achieve certain standards, Rebecca. Not everything has to be a competition." I didn't bother to respond. I've learned that engaging with her merely provides her with more ammunition, after years of enduring her manipulative behavior. Instead, I simply blocked her number. Assuming that would be the end of it, I was mistaken. Maline has never been one to tolerate being ignored. A few hours later, my husband called me at work, laughing so hard he could barely speak. Apparently, unable to reach me directly, Maline had located his personal number, likely through a mutual acquaintance, and sent him a series of texts outlining precisely why our sisterly relationship has always been strained. She began her initial communication to him in a reasonably professional manner. "As Rebecca's sister and someone who cares deeply about our family's well-being, I feel compelled to reach out." However, it quickly devolved into her true motivations. She informed my husband that, as the new man in Rebecca's life, he had a responsibility to help me behave more appropriately. The messages became increasingly patronizing. "Family dynamics are complex," she lectured my husband, a professional software architect with an MBA, adding that someone with Rebecca's sensitivity might not understand the bigger picture. She advised him to help me see reason before I irreparably damaged family relationships. The real kicker, though, was her attempt to appeal to what she perceived as his social climbing aspirations. Surely you realize that maintaining positive relationships with successful family members like myself could be beneficial for your future, she wrote. Rebecca's behavior is only hurting her own prospects, and, by extension, yours. My husband, who has always seen through Maline's facade, found her attempted manipulation hilarious. He particularly enjoyed her presumption that her corporate rank or the potential for networking opportunities would somehow impress him. In his own words, "She really doesn't know me at all, does she?" We reviewed the messages together when I arrived home that evening. Instead of feeling offended or upset, I found myself laughing alongside my husband. Seeing Maline's manipulative tactics exposed, especially when directed at someone completely immune to them, was liberating. This encounter taught me something significant about my sister. Despite all her achievements and success, she's still that insecure teenager who needs to belittle others to feel superior. The fact that she believed she could control me by manipulating my husband demonstrates how little she understands about healthy relationships. The most revealing aspect was how quickly she resorted to attempting to use my husband against me when her direct approach failed. She used to do precisely that in high school. When she couldn't bully me directly, she'd try to turn my friends against me. Different decade, same tactics. With this newfound perspective, I now realize how Maline's actions throughout our younger years extended beyond mere sibling rivalry. She actively worked to maintain her status as the golden child, constantly reminding our parents, and me, of her supposed superiority. Any accomplishment of mine had to be overshadowed. Any friendships I formed had to be undermined by her pointing out my flaws. My reaction to her ploys is different now. 10 years ago, her messages would have sent me spiraling into self-doubt. 5 years ago, I would have been hurt and resentful. Today, I'm simply weary of the drama and amused by her transparent attempts at manipulation. My husband's response was perfect. Instead of becoming entangled in her drama, he simply replied, "Thank you for your concern regarding Rebecca's well-being. As her husband, I'm focused on supporting her happiness, not managing her behavior. I believe it's best if you direct any future concerns to Rebecca directly. Have a pleasant day." Maline sent one final message after not receiving the desired response. "I see she's poisoned you against the family as well. Don't say I didn't try to help when this all blows up in your faces." Ironically, Maline's attempt to help has further solidified my resolve to maintain distance from my family's toxic dynamics. Her messages to my spouse prove that nothing has changed. She's still the same manipulative individual who feels the need to control every narrative and who views any deviation from her perfect family script as a threat. Perhaps the most satisfying aspect of this entire incident is knowing that her attempts at persuasion were utterly unsuccessful. Instead of driving a wedge between us, she managed to bring my husband and me closer. Completely unfazed by her threats of social repercussions, we spent the evening joking about her texts and planning a weekend getaway. I've come to understand that true family isn't about maintaining facades or dictating narratives. It's about standing together, laughing together, and supporting each other when someone, even your own sister, attempts to manipulate you. I'm more certain than ever that I'm better off staying far away from Maline's wedding drama. Instead of getting drawn into my family's endless power struggles, my husband and I have decided to focus on creating our own happiness. They say success is the best revenge, but I'm learning that real success isn't about impressing others. It's about being at peace with your choices and surrounding yourself with people who uplift you rather than hinder your growth. By that measure, I feel more successful than ever. Third update. 2 weeks after my sister's failed attempt to manipulate my husband, things have taken unexpected turns. The situation is escalating, despite my parents' desperate attempts to salvage their reputation. I learned through family connections that my parents have been on a frantic mission to correct the narrative. They've been contacting each relative individually, accusing me of spreading vicious lies, because I'm jealous of Maline's perfect wedding. They claim I'm simply resentful because her wedding will be far more lavish and beautiful than mine was. Their latest narrative is that I intentionally excluded them from my wedding so I could play the victim. It's ironic that they still reside in the same house they've owned for 30 years and have the same email addresses since the dawn of email, yet they're claiming I sent their invitation to an old email address and an old physical address. The good news is that their damage control efforts are failing miserably. Our relatives aren't buying it. In fact, several family members have shared their own stories of my parents' long history of favoritism. One aunt revealed that my mother had previously engaged in similar antics at family weddings, always ensuring Maline was the center of attention. The most rewarding development is how my extended family has reacted to my parents' manipulation. Key family members, some of whom were expected to play significant roles in the event, have withdrawn their support for Maline's wedding. The exclusive venue they secured through family connections may no longer be available. Even a family friend's luxury garment business has suddenly encountered scheduling conflicts. Things reached a breaking point at a family gathering last weekend. Apparently, when someone innocently inquired about my wedding photos, my mother became enraged. She launched into a defensive tirade about how I had changed after getting married and was trying to destroy the family out of jealousy. Her outburst backfired, shocking several relatives who were unaware of the situation and further damaging their carefully cultivated reputation. It's particularly ironic that my parents' frantic attempts to maintain their perfect family facade are the very reason it's crumbling. Every time they try to justify their absence from my wedding, they end up revealing more about their true character. The more they try to paint me as the villain, the more people see through their deception. Family members who previously remained neutral are now choosing sides. Recently, even my father's brother, who had always remained silent to keep the peace, apologized for not speaking up sooner about their treatment of me. He has decided, along with his family, not to attend any of Maline's wedding-related festivities. I haven't had to explicitly address any of this, and I haven't. The truth is handling everything for me. Every time Maline and my parents attempt to twist the narrative, they end up exposing more of their toxic behavior. It turns out that all those years of remaining silent and enduring their treatment in an attempt to keep the peace was actually just enabling their actions. My husband put it best: they built a facade of the perfect family over many years, but it was built on emotional manipulation and favoritism. It was bound to crumble eventually. Personally, I'm doing better than ever. I no longer carry the burden of trying to earn my parents' approval. The stress of managing Maline's emotions has lifted. For the first time in my life, I'm not worried about upholding their perfect family image. Sometimes, the best form of revenge is simply allowing the truth to speak for itself, rather than taking any action at all. I'm grateful to Reddit for giving me the courage to stand up for myself. You have no idea how much your support and encouragement have meant to me throughout this journey. Sometimes, you need to see what true family support looks like from strangers you've met online. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.